Welcome to episode 21 of the Michigan Outdoors podcast. As always, I'm Tyler Mihai alongside Justin Tomei. Today we're joined by a legendary outdoorsman who needs no introduction. He's a Michigan Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, and he's been named Detroit's greatest guitar player of all time. He's performed over 6,750 concerts and sold over 40 million albums.
Yowza.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Stranglehold's the best song ever made.
It's the best song ever
It's
made.
the best song on the planet.
Justin, you have got that correct.
But beyond,
Wait a minute. Fred Bear's better, maybe?
It's up there.
I think
I got a story about Fred Bear,
I
the
think
song
Fred
for
Bear
you, too.
becomes number one right around the 1st of September.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
See, I got this figured. What great music. Am I lucky? Are you lucky?
Oh, yeah.
What great stimulating spirit, fun music after all these years. Yikes.
But beyond the music, in the headlines, he's a diehard Michigan outdoorsman who spent decades living the lifestyle, bow in hand and boots in the woods. He's one of the most outspoken voices for hunting, gun rights, and conservation. Ladies and gentlemen, MUCC Life member Ted Nugent.
Life member,
That's right.
dedicated since I could walk, and I started when I was 9 months old. Greetings, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate
thank
it.
you for being here.
People at MUCC deserve me because I have a feeling that there's some backstrap inspiration in your running through your veins.
I've been listening to Fred Bear since it came out with my
It's
dad. And
magic.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't understand it as much as a kid, but I do now,
You
now
know,
that I have my own kids.
You know, Justin, I think that may be the most important testimony regarding that song is that because of the passion and the emotion and the very exciting musicality that we captured, take one in a recording studio full of tears, that it doesn't matter whether you've ever bow hunted or you've ever liked guitar music. Something happened with that song, which all the best songs in the world happen spontaneously. But when you are saying goodbye to a man that has such a powerful impact on your life, and you got the love affair that you want to continue fanning the flames, and also the heartbreak of losing him, boy, does that song nail it or what? And I got to give credit. I was at Pearl Sound on that day, and Michael Lutz, the bass player from Brownsville Station, and Gunnar Ross, God rest his soul, I called them. I could hardly talk. I was crying so bad I just gagged. And I said, something's happening. We got to get in the studio. They go, what do you got? I go, something's happening. We got to get in the studio. Don't ask questions. And so we got in the studio, and I played it for him solo, and I cried through the whole thing. But that powered the emotion of the guitar lick. That guitar lick just happened out of nowhere. Great guitar lick. And they followed me, and they go, Fred the Bear? And I go, no, not Fred the Bear. It's a man, a great man. Michael Lutz knew who he was because we'd worked together, and I'm always shooting my bow and arrow and referencing Fred. But they nailed it because they embraced and catapulted the emotion that I had for Fred via my best communication capability, music, and take one.
Wow.
Magic moment.
I'm going to steal some of Tyler's thunder, but he's right over your shoulder. We picked this set up intentionally because he is in our Conservation Hall of Fame, and he is right over your shoulder.
Always over my shoulder, and I mean that.
Yeah, that's the one song opening morning every single year, November 15th. When I get in my truck to drive to my property, Fred Bear is the first song I play every single time.
Yeah, and it makes your truck go faster.
It does, and it makes my heart
makes
beat
your
a little
heart go
harder.
faster.
Yeah,
but you know, Tyler, as you say that, I hear that every day.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go anywhere without somebody referencing Fred Bear. I mean, even in Texas where they didn't understand it like Michigan families do. The song, again, it has a spirit unto itself, and you don't have to know who Fred Bear was because it's about losing a loved one and someone you really revere. But I just did a bunch of Ted Nugent shit kicker speakeasies in Texas where it's my new system of performing where I got to be home at night. So I got a buddy with a plane, and I have great friends, but my best friends have planes. And so we go to these gigs, and thousands of people. I just set up with my buddies an amplifier and the drums, and we start playing these songs. In little boys and girls at a barbecue place with 4,000 people, that probably Stranglehold was the carrot, the energy of my music. But the Fred Bear song is neck and neck with my best known songs. Little boys and girls, little kids with Fred Bear signs in Texas at a barbecue joint. It's mystical.
Yeah, what an impact.
It's wow. I'm humbled and moved, but of course the impact that he had on me that is so apparent in every time I talk about him or talk about bow hunting or whatever. But in that song, I still get goosebumps. You see, I already got teary-eyed just talking about it. What a gift to have that kind of connection to a man like that. And you're too young to have met him, but he's way more than you think he was.
So my aunt actually, when he started Bear Archery, my aunt was his insurance agent.
That she could tell you.
So my dad actually got to meet him a couple times at the insurance office just around town. And so at a very young age, he immediately educated me of who Fred Bear was, the impact he had, and then showed me your song when I was very young.
Yeah.
So throughout my life, that's always, when I think hunting, like I think the Fred Bear song.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
My job here is done, but not really, because that it goes on. It's eternal. That song will be eternal, and it is. When I made the recording, we put it on cassette, and I called Henrietta, his widow. I made 3 cassettes, one for me, 4, one for me, one for Gunnar, one for Michael, and one for Henrietta. And I called her to try to tell her what the song was about. We couldn't talk. We just couldn't even get a syllable done. And I said, I'll call you later when I compose myself, but I'm going to put a cassette in the mail to you. Well, one of the guys snuck the song. It wasn't official. I recorded it because I had to. And it was divine intervention, because you usually go through all kinds of preparation to get sounds and drum tones and guitar tones. I had an old Fender experimental amp from the 1960s and a Paul Reed Smith guitar that he had just given to me back when he was first starting that instrument. And I captured that arpeggio and I captured the guitar solo. And Ben East at Pearl Sound and Michael, who's an engineer, technical maniac, as well as a soulful musician, they made sure that we captured the greatest drum sound right away. We didn't take time to check everything because we just wanted to capture this song. Well, we captured it. What you hear was take one and we mixed it rough. We even got the Fred Bear Kurt Gowdy album. If today's teenage thrill seekers really want to, I just remembered that was a statement by Fred, and I said, we'll put that in the end when my guitar's feeding back. Well, Doug Podell, I think it was WRIF at the time, somebody gave him that cassette, and he thought it was a song about Fred the Bear, but it didn't say who the artist was. And he played it, very adventurous of him in breaking all the rules, which are my favorite people, by the way, people that break the rules. He played that song, and he said never in his 40-some-year radio career had the phones blown up, that they wanted to know what that song was, who it was. And of course, once the song starts, he realized it was me, but it wasn't an official release. And as they say, the rest is history. It's been the #1 requested song in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania since 1989. No song ever, any of those years, gets more requests than Fred Bear. How cool is that?
Yeah, what a tribute.
Wow.
Truly.
My 6-year-old knows it by
Yes!
the first 2 notes play. She goes, this is Fred Bear. And then that bit of Fred talking at the end.
Yes.
Grizzly bear and the polar bear and the brown bear, cleanse the soul. That's the part my dad would rewind and play for me. And that's the part that I didn't get when I was young. And I get it now that I'm older.
And it's an important statement. It's a monstrously important statement, especially in the world of zombie technology. Instead of discovering the instinctual control of one's life via the instinctual control of one's arrow, that's really what that's about. Young people get it because of the emotion of that song, that maybe they would. And I hear this all the time. I just got done testifying at the state capitol, and all these kids are coming up to me telling me that same story. So if I'm a little bit cocky, I earned it. My confidence cup runneth over that I have channeled my love of conservation and the lessons of Fred Bear and my dad and that era in a song that has global impact, that they will never tune into an MUCC. They'll never hear about. They don't know who Poper Young is, but they know this song, Fred Bear. That's Fred imprinted on me. That he never said it, but I so loved the man. I knew that his legacy and his integrity needed to live on after he passed away in March 8th, 1988.
Well, and obviously he was so impactful to you. When you think of him, is there one story that kind of sits above the rest? Like, is there one hunting, trip that you guys took, or one time that you just always think about, like, that? I think about that. That was it.
No.
Just all of them.
All of them. Yeah.
When I was a little boy, 6 or 7 years old, I lived in Detroit, and I was already shooting a bow and arrow. I mean, I'd make my own bow and arrow down in the Rouge River, and we all made our homemade slingshots out of hickory forks and inner tube rubber with laces from an ice skate in somebody's trash pile, literally, and cut out a piece of someone's gabardine. You know, gabardine. It's like a Levi, and you'd cut out a pouch, and then I'd get ball bearings and knock the ball bearings out of and that would be my slingshot. So I was already into what eventually became one of my corporations called projectile management. I was already into managing my projectiles. And we'd go up there and stop at this little off yellow cinder block shack on the outskirts of Grayling with a handmade wooden sign over the top that I'm sure Nels Grumley made, the original bowyer of Fred's, who started with him in Detroit in the 29. But when they moved to Grayling, Fred and Nels Grumley went up there, and Nels made this wooden plaque that said Bear Archery. And I'm just as dumb. I know nothing, but I was already into archery and into critters at the Rouge River. And I didn't know who Fred Bear was. I didn't know there was an official sport or a lifestyle. But every year we'd stop there, and most years he was there. So those memories are like burned on my psyche, because he was such a kind, tall, lanky, friendly guy, and we'd have chocolate milk and cherry pie at the Grayling restaurant. And so by the time I was 8 or 9 years old, I'm starting to realize, wait a minute, this is the guy on the cover of True magazine with a polar bear. And I'm still trying to get my, songbird slam on the Rouge River. And so all of a sudden, as Chuck Berry imprinted on me musically, Bo Diddley, Little Richard, James Brown, Motown, I was in that vortex. Equal was the bow and arrow, so Fred was almost like my Chuck Berry of bow hunting, and it guided me. And here I am 77 years later, and you can tell I'm still giddy for both of those things. How lucky is that? How many people will never, how lucky. So yeah, Fred, his gentlemanliness, his sense of humor, his down-to-earth, friendly, welcoming this little stupid kid. And my dad, who eventually got into business with him, he represented a Swedish steel company of blue rolled spring steel that Fred invited my dad up to hunt the quarter sections up north when the deer were exploding because of the timbering and all the new growth caused maximum habitat. Wow. Even guitar players know that. And so my dad got in communication with him and started using the steel company my dad represented to make the bleeder blades for the Bear Razorhead. So now when we stopped, it was almost like a business and just a bow hunting campfire relationship. And I started to realize that this guy is the guiding force for my maniacal craving for October to arrive. And I couldn't wait to stop there because he had lots of arrows. And if I had 3 or 4 arrows, that was like an arsenal. Because even when they broke, I got them from Miller's Feed Store in Grand River. And even when the Port Orford high-profile shield-cut turkey feather arrows broke, I'd whittle it and I just would draw shorter. And I can still hit squirrels.
I have a half dozen of those arrows in my house right now.
Yes.
My dad, when my grandpa passed, my dad got it, and I was going through some of my dad's stuff, and he's like, I found this old Bear bow, and I can't remember the model.
In a blue box, maybe? They're in a blue box, and yellow turkey feathers.
Yep, that's the one.
Justin, fondle those often. There's mojo in that stuff.
I'm trying to find a couple missing parts, and my intention is to put it on the wall with my bear mount.
Yeah, good for you, man.
So yeah,
it's special stuff. So
super cool.
You can't rave enough about Fred Bear. So thank you for you guys, because you are like a whole huge army of hunters, mostly bow hunters, but all hunters, all conservationists, that know what he represented and the force that he had in a conservation development. Because Roy Weatherby was creating the long range rifles, which is awesome. I'm a big crosshair long range sniper fan. In fact, I am one. But something about getting closer and the nerve shattering dynamic of that stalking higher level of awareness that Fred really reinvented, because we were moving away from difficult stuff. We wanted telescopic sights and long range, but Fred said it so many times, well, there's more to it than that. And that was a magic promotional jihad.
Mm-hmm. My wife never got what you're describing, and she never wanted to hunt, never wanted to do anything to do with it. And then we met, and I took her out a couple times, and then the first time she sat alone with a crossbow, though. But she had a deer within 15 yards, and she's
the heartbeat.
She goes, it's 4 seconds of excitement.
Yeah.
But he goes, I'll be chasing that high for the rest of my life. There's nothing like it.
Ditto for Mrs. Nugent. She had no knowledge of hunting, conservation, but I fixed that within about 20 minutes. And she has become just dedicated to not just the discipline of the mystical flight of the arrow, but the ultimate healthy diet that if you really apply yourself, that God will bless you with. She's a super health advocate and a warrior. And nothing says that better than a person who hunts their own food and knows the origin and how it's handled. So, yeah, this is the full circle. That's what Michigan United Conservation Club is. I think if you were to nail down the mission statement, I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you a personal question then. So I'm an adult onset hunter. I didn't shoot my first deer until I was 25. I've shot at least one deer every year since.
Awesome.
And now I almost exclusively eat venison. I've always loved venison, but
the best.
I just wasn't raised hunting. I was raised fishing. So, I've never had a compound bow, and I started with a gun because I figured that was the highest confidence for me to make a clean, ethical kill, and that was priority number one. Now that I'm more confident, I've been hunting a lot more, I'm wanting to get into archery. For someone like me, or just anyone in my shoes that wants to get into archery, what do you think is the best way to get into it as a whole?
Well, the best system is to go to your local archery store, which Michigan is blessed with really professional, really knowledgeable people. I have great friends at Shootback Sporting Goods down in Jackson, and these guys are all gonzo. They live the discipline. I keep using the big D word because that's what ultimate archery is. You have to find your higher level of awareness and make Mr. Left Hand talk to Mr. Right Hand and Mr. Heartbeat and Mr. Brain and Mr. Lungs, and everybody's got to work together for the moment of thump truth. You make friends, just wander into a sporting goods shop where you feel welcome, because there has been a history of some archery shops that'll try to get you to shoot an 80-pound bow or you're a girl. And I hope that's almost gone. You need to find a bow that an expert will let you try so that you can shoot it gracefully. If you have to hump to get it back, it's the wrong bow for you. I'm a huge advocate for graceful, effortless, lightweight draw. My wife, Shemaine, shoots a 30-pound Matthews, and she kills 600-pound Oryx Kudu Zebra with a 2-blade knife-cutting broadhead. Obviously, you have to do the bow. I shoot 48 pounds now because I'm old. And plus, I find that graceful is accurate. Weightlifting is going to complicate it. Now, those guys, my buddy Cameron Haynes, who shoots a 100-pound bow.
Yeah, that's who I was going to bring up.
Go for it. And Joe Rogan, who's just like this mastodon. Fred Bear said it, you should shoot the heaviest bow you can shoot comfortably. And if you've got to lift weights to get the full draw, it's the wrong bow. I think archery isn't power. Archery is grace and shot placement. And even though there's unbelievable equipment nowadays, I think I'm sure that Shemaine's 30-pound compound, which is not just Matthews because that's what we shoot. They're all awesome. The archery industry is loaded with mad scientists. I don't know how many micrometers they get, but they got these wheels and cams working in unison, and those bows are so efficient. Ann Hoyt of Hoyt Archery killed every big game animal in North America with a 35-pound recurve. And I promise you, Shemaine's 30 pounds Matthews will outshoot a 50-pound recurve. I mean, as far as kinetic delivery. Right. And even Fred Eichler of Everything Eichler Outdoors, he worked with Fred Bear. He's a he-man. I think he could turn crowbars into pretzels. But he shoots a 40-pound recurve because he finds that grace enhances focus and flight of the arrow. So my recommendation is to be careful not to be talked into a bow that's difficult to come to full draw with. You don't need power. Yeah. You need comfort and accuracy and the stealth to get close to the game. But again, to each his own. If you can shoot, I mean, Howard Hill, I communicated with Howard Hill before he died in 75. He shot a 102-pound longbow, and I think one day he picked up 2 of them and pulled them both back. That's hysterical. And he was probably the greatest archer that ever lived. I mean, you study with that guy. I mean, this has come from a guy who reveres the ground that Fred Bear walked on, but Howard Hill was an anomaly. He was like a freak. I have buddies that hunted with him. Doug Walker of Western Bowhunter said that they'd go to the Catalina Islands, and Howard Hill would have a back quiver with 50 arrows, and he'd always have another arrow, almost like a tactical clearing a crack house in Detroit. He'd have extra ammo against the longbow, and in order to get what he called an ethical shot, he would take the first arrow, make the rabbit run, and then shoot it on the run. And Doug Walker said he never missed. And when I was a kid, I could shoot that instinctively. Maybe not quite Howard Hill capability, but for someone who wants to get into it, start slow, make sure the bow is tuned up. Especially, I would recommend an old-fashioned bow. You call them traditional, but if you grab it and draw it, that's tradition to me. I don't care what the content is. A graceful, fun, easy-to-shoot bow, and start at 10 feet. And shoot instinctive. Find out the hand-eye coordination. The more you shoot old-fashioned close range and discover what does the sight picture look like over your fist, whether you 3-finger under Apache or you split finger like Fred, or you come up to the eye for what they call rifle barreling, or you come under Olympic under the chin. It's all legit, but you need to know, back in the old days, we'd call it point shooting, because when you anchor it here, if you put the tip of the arrow on what you wanted to hit, it would go over, because it's going like this. Whereas you learn what the sight picture is, now you got this gap that your muscle memory. Are you a recurve shooter?
No.
Well, you need to discover that, but start right close at a big target. And Fred told me to get a paper plate and outline, this is before Sharpies, but outline a nickel and fill in the size of a nickel on a paper plate against a bale of hay and find out, or am I pointing that arrow towards that thing? Okay, I think I am. Boom. Ooh, low left. Okay, next time I'm going to aim high right. That procedure is so titillating, and it's the essence of projectile management, where you discover the gap that's necessary on an instinctive shot. Now, when you rifle barrel, you don't have a gap, because now you're looking right down the shaft. And the guys that do that, that's awesome. So slow, start close, and don't go hunting till you can shoot 100% into the vitals at your self-designated range restriction.
I should have listened to my dad more. Because it sounds exactly like what you're saying.
It's true. This isn't a hunch. I don't have any
25 years
hunches.
ago, when he's teaching me to shoot a bow, it's the same thing you're telling me now.
Yep.
When I would go out, we'd walk out of our cabin to go out hunting. He'd put a playing card.
Yep, that's a good one.
On the target, and he wouldn't let me go out to the tree stand until I put 3 arrows in the playing card.
Is your dad still with us?
Yes, he is.
Tell him I love him.
Okay, will do.
That's good stuff. But see, that's just sensible. It's common sense. And again, as reasoning predators, it'll break your heart to wound an animal, and we're going to, because we're so human. But the goal is to apply yourself and dedicate yourself to 100% kill vital hits. And if you designate your own, once again, discipline and ethics and morals, if it's beyond what you've been able to hit that card at, if he's further away than that playing card, just don't shoot. And it's sometimes hard, because sometimes you have to wait days and weeks, in my case, years, before a deer showed up broadside. So you go, my God, there he is. I think I can get this one. So it takes discipline.
One thing I've always respected about you too is you're so about the process. Like, I remember hearing you talking about how you take your bow into hotel rooms on tour.
Yes.
And you're shooting in hotel rooms.
Yes.
And you're like, I don't care about the distance. It's just the process. And you're just getting the muscle memory perfected.
Form. Yes.
Yeah.
I've got many telephone books across the nation that have a smile on the middle from a bear razor head going into the phone book in a hotel room in Des Moines. Now, I don't know if that's legal or not, but I've been clean and sober for 77 years, and I've always raved about this on all media. I attribute that to my craving to hit the bullseye and to get close to deer. And I should have been the poster child for being a heroin addict because my dad was so over-disciplinary. He was a drill sergeant in the cavalry, and he trained his kids like horses. So I should have probably gone the route of drugs and alcohol and stupidity. But I was so intense on getting close to that covey of quail on the Rouge River and getting close to that raccoon before it saw me and getting an arrow in his middle that I think that guided me away from what I was witnessing from my so-called peers, which I don't have any, by the way, with the drugs and the alcohol and the stupidity and the drooling, the puking and the stumbling and the dying. Not a party where I come from. That my instinct to get home and shoot a good arrow, going, well, I probably couldn't shoot a good arrow in that condition. So that helped guide me on a true north compass setting. I think that may be my most powerful message, especially to young people when I do rock and roll interviews and big media, which I do all the time. And I know it resonates because I hear from these people all the time. I mean, if you saw my stack of mail, everybody's getting drunk and smoking dope, but I heard you on the radio and how you're having so much fun. You look like a wild man and you're militantly against that. So I decided to be militantly against that. And I've had a great life because of it. And 3 of my friends died. Do you need more evidence than that? So that's awesome, huh? Just a big mouth promoting things that serve me well, that will serve you well.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that impresses me about you too, is your memory. When you talk about these things and you're using like the manufacturer names and the model number, and you're getting like the fact that you can remember all these things from when you were 6, 7, 8 years old.
Yes.
Like I can barely remember what I had for dinner last night.
Yeah.
And you can remember things from 70 years ago, but it's gotta be the, just how you treat your body like a temple. And
yes, my body is a temple. That's a colloquialism that has been suicidally abandoned. My body is a sacred temple. And I do remember all that stuff because I know I'm lucky. I know I am stupid lucky. A lot of people would say heavy on the stupid side. But I am crazy lucky that what turned me on in my developing very youthful youth, killer guitar music and bow hunting. Yikes. 77 years later, killer guitar music and bow hunting. Equal to those passions are my dedication and insistence on fighting for them. So the reason I can remember is because I don't do things casually. I'm a very intense individual. And when you approach your passions with intensity, it imprints. So I remember the Miller's Feed Store. I remember the arrows. And in 1956, 1957 at Miller's Feed Store, which was awesome because it smelled like hay. And he had bows on the wall. He had Wing and Pearson and Bear and all these Port Orford cedar arrows. And it smelled a certain way. So I would go down there just to fondle arrows. And I remember all that stuff because it's such a powerful guiding light in my life. And I just pray that my uppityness, my passion, not only do I hope, but I'm convinced that it is contagious. And I get that. You're mentioning that that's how your dad taught you, because it wasn't your dad's idea, wasn't my idea. It's the right thing. So yeah, I'm a lucky guy that I'm so passionate, because I hear people use the B word and I go, boredom. What's this boredom you speak of? I have no idea what that is.
So you strike me as someone that doesn't get bored.
I don't get bored.
So I want to pivot a little bit. You're talking about, all these opportunities and things that you did. And, the common denominator here is they're all in Michigan.
Yeah.
So, looking back, what has made Michigan so special to you?
Well, when I was born and raised here, I was born December 13th, 1948 in Detroit. My first house was 23251 Florence on the corner of Hazleton across from the Rouge River. How's that for a memory?
That's pretty good.
I'm right next to Michelle Marston, who was the girl next door. But anyhow, it was the arsenal of democracy when I was born. We stopped making cars and started making bombers and howitzers. That patriotism for clearly the only experiment in self-government, I couldn't have told you that back then, but there was an aura of neighborliness. The white picket fences were always freshly painted. My dad made me. The lawns were always well kept. My dad made me. You always do your homework before you get to go out and play. My dad made me. You would learn to clean the house and do your own laundry and clear the table and do dishes and get the Twin Pines glass bottled milk from the little cooler on the porch every Wednesday morning. So way before your time. Gas was 11 cents a gallon. On where McNichols meets Grand River.
Man.
McNichols, also known as 6 Mile Road, with 16th Precinct. Believe me, I know about that. And so they had gas wars between a Sunoco station and the Gulf station down to 11.9 a gallon. My dad was pissed. Over 10 cents, I'll never buy gas again.
Yeah.
So there's never really been a Leave It to Beaver, but we were close.
Yeah.
It was God. I was raised in a Catholic school, Christ the King on Grand River, and then St. Mary's of Redford on Grand River. I met a gal from St. Mary's of Redford that went to school with me in 1960. Where was that at? Just last week. Where was that? And I was at the sushi bar. I eat sushi in Jackson. So there was an aura of God, family, certainly patriotism. There was a rejoiceful, united celebration of good over evil, irrefutable. Nobody's going to argue that. My dad was in the Army and fought in Korea, but the neighborliness that you were there for each other, but you were still independent, but you cared about each other. And with the very painful discipline of my father, God bless him. What a bastard. I love the guy. My sister and brothers were all successful people because of that prioritization discipline to be the best that you can be. So it was an aura, especially in the world of nature. I was right across the street from the Rouge River. It was as wild as anything in the Upper Peninsula. The quail, the pheasant, the beavers, the woodcock. I didn't even know what a woodcock was, but boy, they fly up. I go, what is that? That's a neat bird. I got to shoot me one of them. So it was a pure time. It was a American dream Industrial Revolution eruption of goodwill and decency, positive energy, work ethic. Detroit was known as the arsenal of democracy and the epicenter of work ethic. Welfare, how embarrassing would that be? You get up early, you put your heart and soul into being productive and protect your family and provide. And if you earn your own way, live within your means, save for a rainy day, you can help someone that is having a hard time. Not Uncle Sam, because if someone needed $10, Uncle Sam would charge us $1 million. I couldn't have told you that then, but I've learned it over the years. So Michigan, especially up north, are you kidding me? We'd get in the Ford Country Squire. We called it the Banana Boat, 1956 Ford Country Squire. And I made sure that we put our bows, our recurves, and our quivers of arrows in the window so that anybody going by would see that we're going north to go deer hunting. And we go up to Fletcher's Floodwaters and Hawks and Hillman and Gaylord and Grayling. And when another car went by with arrows, I'd knock it. Yeah, show 'em my arrows. I was a force to reckon with. So those memories. And then meeting Fred, are you kidding me? And by the time I got to be a little older and we'd stop in Greta, now I knew who he was. And he was my bow hunting guru, and he was so welcoming. So it was the best state in the nation on all levels: God, family, country, productivity, work ethic, neighborliness, piss and vinegar. How perfect. And it's not gone, but you have to look for that now. It's in our lives. It's in our inner circle, whether it's my band or my family or my hunting buddies or any of my businesses. That, dare I say, perfection, good people, dedicated to goodness. It's still alive and well in this country. It's just that we trusted Uncle Sam, and he violated that trust and ended up with a Joe Biden and regulations in Michigan game laws that are in violation of sound science. And that's why I just testified. So I fight against the evil forces that violate the premise of independence and science-based game laws. But then when I'm done scolding people, I just go shoot my bow and my life is perfect once again.
Right.
Well, that's what I was going to say too, is I think we still can find, or we still do find a piece of that every now and then, right? Like every time you're in a tree, like you're back.
Perfect moments.
Right? You're just, it's You feel everything that you always remembered and thought about, and all those great moments when you're sitting in that tree or in that blind. It all comes back.
98
like,
days till bow season.
I quote the Fred Bear decree that it cleanses the soul.
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, and I'm a dangerously intense guy. I'm surprised I haven't blown up right here in front of you. But I testify against these evil forces in all 50 states. I'm working in all 50 states. So Montana still thinks the grizzly bear is endangered, but people are shooting them in self-defense at the highest rates ever. So many atrocities in the game departments here. I can't use bait or hounds or a spring season for bear in Colorado, but I got to pay the USDA to use bait and hounds in the spring. Really? And somebody accepts that? So I gnash my teeth on an hourly basis. So as intensive life and hardworking as all you are, you will never cause your forehead veins to pop like mine do on a daily basis. So that tree stand time and time with my dogs and time with my family, which is always dogs and outdoors. I mean, I live in a swamp in Jackson. I live on a wild game ranch in Texas. I make sure that I escape to soul cleansing Spirit TV show, Spirit of the Wild. That's what you're talking about. So that's what you got in that tree. That's the spirit of the wild. And while you're there, your brain does not go into ugly territories. You apply your God-given radar to pick up that sound, and you don't move your head. You move your eyes. It consumes us. Say hallelujah, because that perfection is available to everybody if they would discover it, if they were as smart as we are. So that's what people go, well, you defend hunting really good. No, I don't defend hunting. Why would I defend perfection? I promote it and I celebrate it, and I let the idiots defend their lie because they can't.
Let me ask you a quick question then. Can you define yourself in a tree stand? Because you talk about how intense of a guy you are.
I am.
What are you like in a tree stand?
I just told my son, we had a talk with a bunch of guys coming to hunt with us this week. I go, I am the most intense guy you'll ever meet, and I'm also the quietest, statuesque, flatline. I'm surprised my heart just doesn't stop, except that I'm intensely pursuing awareness without moving. So I've talking about, is there anything more intense than playing Stranglehold and then sitting in a tree for 6 hours without moving? I mean, that's as extreme as you can get, because my music has to be played with fire and intensity and dynamo. But to be a good bow hunter, and it was a struggle for many years because it was hard to make the transition from the Motor City Madman, leaping off of amplifiers, scaring people, to shutting up in a tree for 4 or 5 hours. But I figured it out because every time I move, I mean, the deer see it from a hidden place.
Yeah.
How quick is that switch for you? Is it like the second you step foot in the woods, it's on?
The minute I put the guitar down.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do play my guitar every day, so I get into the danger zone every day because I still love experimenting on the guitar, and I still play my music, still doing concerts, having more fun than I've ever had in my life. Is that possible? Yes. But I train my dogs every day. We are killing woodchucks and groundhogs galore right now, which, by the way, groundhogs, it's little beef. I hope you guys eat your woodchucks.
I just read a comment.
I've never heard that.
Yeah,
it's a little cow.
I'll try anything once.
I read that on Facebook yesterday. Someone was like, what's your favorite meat? And someone said woodchuck or groundhog. I was like, what?
It's a little cow. The cuter the critter, the sweeter the meat. And my dogs are the masters at killing woodchucks. I don't even have to shoot them anymore. They just catch them.
Huh.
Awesome.
The meat we like that always surprises people is bobcat and cougar.
Bobcat, the other white meat. And mountain lion.
Yeah, very good.
Yep, good stuff. We have bobcats in Jackson County now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm expecting to see a bear before long. Yeah, but no, the transition, it's challenging. When I was fresh out of high school in '67, because the Amboy Dukes did almost 350 concerts a year, so it was a yin-yang, the velocity. Oh my goodness, I'm surprised I survived. But I would also take time off in October and November before I discovered how important the rut was, to the point where eventually it became the first week of November. Not just a day here. I need the first week.
Right.
And then I went, well, with a bunch of grunting going on, let's make the last week of October and the first week of November. And then a few years later, I went, let's make it October and November. My management, everybody go, you can't take 2 months off. And I go, really? What's the name of this outfit? I think it's called Ted Nugent. That would be the boss. Well, you can do that later in life. I go, no, there will only be one 1975 October.
Right.
I want to make sure that 1975 rut, I'm there. And so I expanded it now where I do like 35, 40 concerts a year. And even on the days I do the concerts, I still go hunting and I run a trap line. So I'm hands-on conservation every day of my life.
And you still run a trap line?
Yes, I do
That's
run a trap
awesome.
year-round for the varmints.
Right.
And then come fall, beavers and muskrat.
Is that in Jackson? You run the trap line?
Yeah, and otters. And but I'm on a war against the raccoons. I kill over 200 a year.
Wow.
Just on my Concord property. They're just dangerously overpopulated.
I trapped my first coons last year. I was fortunate enough to go to what they call Trappers College.
Do you get the little foot traps?
That's what I did it in. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to go to Trappers College and got a week-long course in just kind of like a primer and trapping, something I always wanted to do and never had a mentor. And I caught my first coon.
Yeah, that's important. Everybody should become a member of the National Trappers Association, nationaltrappers.com, I think it is. Trapping is probably the most environmentally beneficial conservation of all, because if you're going to have disease, it's because you didn't harvest an adequate number of fur bearers.
I got to tell stories of seeing the Indiana biologist over the moon because in the particular part of the state where we were trapping, badgers are like endangered.
Yes,
we caught 4 badgers in a week across
that's not
the group.
Endangered.
Well, and she was ecstatic because they had never seen them there before, and I was sent there to learn how to trap, to be a better advocate for trappers. And so I got to tell that story to decision makers after some anti-hunting, anti-conservation person went up there and said trapping just kills everything. And I'm like, well, I have video of us releasing 4 badgers that the Indiana DNR didn't know was there. Like, it is the best management tool we have.
And the average DNR, those that deserve respect don't have to take offense, but the rest of you should. They get their wildlife information in an office on a computer screen. That's not good intel. You have to wear out boots and go beyond the pavement and live with the animals for years before you can claim knowledge. You can't get it from a book. You can't get it from a teacher. You can't get it on a computer screen. You got to get out there and do it. That's why I testified today, because I'm afraid our DNR, they're making assumptions. I don't know where these assumptions come from, because it has nothing to do with the nature that I live. And so I'm hoping that we'll get back to sound science-based regulations to put these animals in the asset column instead of the liability column, like the mourning dove, sandhill crane, the bears, the wolves, the geese. They're going to gas geese? I don't think so. You might want to increase the bag limit. I mean, you got to be kidding me, the things they want to do. So, yeah, boots on the ground is the only source of honest, meaningful wildlife information.
Well, and you talked about education, and I don't think we found them, but we have a box of traps, and they're all 3D printed. So it's an actual trap, and we take this to all of our shows, to our kids' camp. We teach all these youth how to trap with literal plastic, and you can set it, and it goes off, and it has springs.
Beautiful.
And it doesn't hurt you. But we found that people are so interested in playing with them. I mean, we get moms and daughters that have never touched a gun or hunted or anything. They come up and they want to learn how to set a trap, and just because they have the access to see it, they want the education.
Yet, you see some 10-year-old kid come up, and he starts playing with this dual coil spring, setting it like a pro, and he's like, "Oh, I trap with my grandpa." That's the stuff I love seeing, is those guys.
You have kickstarted their instincts. Our Ted Nugent Camp for Kids is in its 36th year, and it's always had a trapping seminar, along with archery and safe gun handling and fishing, survival, being clean and sober, and atlatls and slingshots and projectile management, because that's that hand-eye spirit coordination that is necessary to achieve excellence in any endeavor. And you're right, ditto. They are always fascinated, especially the parents, because the propaganda against trapping is so dishonest and so anti-nature and so anti-environment that their instincts know better. I have fixed people who have been raised on the animal rights, anti-hunting, anti-trapping propaganda for 40, 50 years, and give me 5 minutes with them, and they'll turn their head, furrow their brow, and squint and go, "Oh, I didn't know that." Well, of course, they made sure you didn't know that. And they will become an advocate, and in many instances, a participant. Said, probably nothing better for a kid to do, or anybody, but especially a kid in the the alternative opportunities that exist out there that are just so dangerous to the psyche and the soul. The outdoor lifestyle and trapping, I think, is the most important because it takes a lot of effort, and the more an endeavor is difficult, the more gratification one receives from it. Boy, that's almost profound.
Well,
I
that's
think somebody else said that.
That's a great segue too. I mean, we'd love to talk about, the camp and how fulfilling has that been for you? I mean, you said it's been going on, is it 37 years?
36 years.
36 years. Yeah. What's that been like to see, I believe, was it 15,000 kids in the Nebraska
over
camp?
now, yeah.
Yeah.
We do it every year thanks to the Nebraska bow hunters, the Iowa bow hunters, the Colorado bow hunters, and the National Field Archery Association. We do it in Nebraska, Iowa, Colorado, and every other year or so in South Dakota. We're trying to reignite it here in Michigan because this is where it all started. Well, to tell you how powerful it is, we have mothers and fathers that are bringing their children now that were kids at my camp 30 years ago. And the emotional gushing thank yous that Shemaine and I get, how it literally saved kids' lives and taught them to resist the lie of peer pressure, the lies of the propaganda ministry. I mean, some of the graduates from the Ted Nugent camp for kids will stand right up in class and go, teacher, that's not true. That's my favorite part. Teaching kids to be defiant against.
So I wonder who they learned that from.
Yes, it's that talk. You use the word rewarding. Wow, that's as rewarding as it gets. But it's pure, and it goes to Kevin Mark and Paul Malone and Roger Bowen and Carol Ashworth and Bruce Call and hundreds and hundreds of volunteers because it's a huge endeavor. We've narrowed it down to a single day. Starts at daybreak and goes to dark. And again, it's archery, firearms safety, hunter safety, marksmanship, discipline, atlatls, slingshots, every outdoor act, trapping, fishing, how to turn critters into family-sized portions. So nothing could be more gratifying than to see these kids turn into an army of stewards of God's miraculous creation. It's just the ultimate, I think.
We run a youth camp in Chelsea, and my favorite story that I've ever heard from it is the kids that go there that had never seen a star before.
Yes.
And those type. I mean, all of us, I think, at least myself, I can say for certain, I started this work because I want to make sure my kid can do it.
That's why I testified today. I'm going to have great hunting season. I'm going to have the best hunting season of my life this year. I promise you. But if these non-science regulations continue to metastasize and scare people away from the sport, then my grandkids, I have 13 of them, will be pressed. Though I have a feeling my grandkids will not be pressed. But young people will be challenged to pursue it because it'll be more and more difficult. But you know what you're saying, Justin, when these kids, we've had a lot of our volunteers are law enforcement in inner cities, and they'll identify special needs kids that don't have a family, don't have parents. They're abandoned, basically. And they organize, they bring these inner city kids talking about a tearjerker because they're real resistance because, bows and arrows fishing, that's not cool until they do it. And that bobber goes down the first time, we got more than a fish hooked. I promise you that.
So my daughter's 6, and I fight through the same things that all other parents do, screens and electronics, and we try. She loves camping, likes hunting and fishing, but I guess. Is that just seeing that bobber go down the message you think that resonates with them? Is there anything else you guys really try and teach at camp to bust through all that and make it rise to the top, I guess?
Well, our volunteers, much like the founder, are rather uppity individuals with high energy. Kids immediately are attracted to a high energy person because I'm having fun and it's really obvious. And all of our volunteers make sure they are already naturally positive, energetic people. But I say, that's the carrot. That's what you want to impress upon these kids, that you're having a great time because you're clean and sober. Sacred temple. You can't have as much fun as Ted Nugent if you're drunk or stoned. It's virtually impossible. Plus, you'll hurt yourself. So that message, with the inescapable emphasis of marksmanship and safe gun handling, never point the muzzle towards anything you're not willing to destroy. We drive that home. And they pick it up. They cling to it immediately. Very rarely do we have to repeat this stuff. Now, obviously, at the firing lane, you got to wait for the range master, but we have a volunteer per kid almost in most instances. So as a package, I know we're saving these kids. And here's the most important takeaway. Those kids that graduated from our camp and your camp, we instill upon them, we literally say, now you be positive peer pressure. If your friends try to convince you to do something stupid, stand up and go, I don't think so. How about you come with me? We're going fishing this weekend. How about you come in the backyard? We got a bale of hay and a bow and arrow. Become a positive, and they do. And then those recruitments become positive. It becomes an army.
Right.
It's awesome. And everywhere I go, I hear feedback, which is one of my favorite things in life. I get feedback from families who have said, boy, did you make a difference in Johnny's life. He just can't wait to get home from school and shoot his bow. Hallelujah.
Well, and that's where our missions align so well, because we're just trying to create more generations of future conservation stewards. Sure. And I think that's what's going to make everything better. And that's what's going to get the hunting numbers back up, and just, continuing to push into these kids to get them outdoors, get them hunting, get them fishing, get them camping, all these things. And, I think the culmination of all these efforts is going to be successful.
With the focus on youth, which is the battle cry. It's our job number one. So we have an early youth deer season. I have my own opinions on that, and I'll share them with you. In fact, I'll start by sharing them with you. I think the real incentive for youth hunting in Michigan is to have a free license till you're 16, instead of giving them a too easy of an experience with their own weekend. I'm not sure that there's any data to support that the youth season has increased recruitment of people that weren't already in hunting families. Now, I know we've all seen it, that the hunting families have invited neighbors' kids and turned them on. But I know that I have a feeling, I'm speaking for you guys, if we wouldn't have got skunked, would we have tried so hard? I mean, I couldn't wait to try again, because that damn deer didn't slow down, or he didn't stop in the opening. Now, maybe because I'm a crazy intense guy, maybe I didn't need a kill to keep me going. It was the lack of kills. And the first my first button buck, November 15th, 1968, my dad's pre-64 Model 70 Winchester 308. I got 180 grain core locks from Luke's Corner on Free Soil Road in Big Bear Lake for $5.95. Not $5.95 a round. The whole box was $5. Yeah. And I was wearing my dad black and red Woolrich and Herman Survivors. No. The original boot. There was no lacrosse or none of that. It was Herman leather boot, insulated, but didn't keep you warm at all. Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. So all those struggles, I think, made me the man I am. Mm-hmm. And so that I had a doe permit that year. It was in 55. They had an open doe season, which was a big mistake. It was something. We could talk about that another time. But I'm in the Manistee National Forest behind Shorty Jensen's farm, dairy farm, in the Manistee National Forest. And the sun's coming up, and I mean, you couldn't count to three. In those days, is it like that anymore? I don't think so. It couldn't count to three between shots. It was awesome. I go, that's awesome. These guys are knocking them down. And all of a sudden, these deer come through this big pine growth. And the biggest one, they're all baldies, the biggest one, about 125 yards out. And I got that on my knee, snicked off that Model 70 safety, got the buckhorn sights, and put it on his shoulder, and it on her shoulder, and it stopped. Pow! And it leaped up and took off. And I was expecting it to fall over. And I go, how did I miss, man? I've been shooting playing cards at 100 yards all week. So I walked over there, and there's hair and blood. And I looked, got my deer. I ran over there, laid that rifle. Look at this. Yeah. And I picked up that head, and I went, awesome. Wait, it's a buck. I got a buck. I took that to a taxidermist. And he said, you're going to mount this? And I go, yeah, it's a buck, feel. It's on my wall at my cabin in Irons. I mounted that button buck. So I don't want to hear about antler point restrictions and what somebody thinks is a trophy or somebody thinks is a desirable deer. You know who makes that decision? Me. I got a button buck mount. And the next year I got my first deer with the bow, and it's a yearling doe. It's about 75 pounds, and it's mounted right next to my button buck. And it's right, Toad? It's on the cabin wall. That's why I defy others' decision-making. Remember, when I started bow hunting, some man made it illegal for me to climb a tree with my bow. Well, I was just a dumb kid, but my instincts went, so there's a man that's in control of my tree climbing? I want to meet this guy. So I know that it's a personal experience, the ultimate personal experience, but we always have to have policy and regulations based on the dynamic of the resource, harvesting the surplus to balance the herd through the death of winter, preparation for next year's production based on the habitat carrying capacity, winter severity index, and highway slaughter. And I'm just a guitar player, and I figured that all by myself. Is that awesome? Isn't that your life?
Yeah.
I mean, my first buck was a little 4-point. He's mounted in my living room, and I don't have the doe herself, but I have the broadhead and the tag and a shadow box for my first bow kill.
You.
So I've done something similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's mystic. I remember the wind direction. I remember the temperature. I remember where the last gunshot that went off my shoulder to the northwest before the deer show. There were 5 of them, and I shot the biggest one. It was a buck. Feel. It's so funny. Yeah. It's a buck. Feel.
You just never forget those first
Now
moments.
I'm kind of against shooting button bucks, but
yeah.
But no, I don't dictate it. I'm just for myself.
Yeah. No, I mean those memories, we talk about it all the time on here. It's like you never forget that first time. Yep. And that's what hooks everyone. That's the bobber going under. Yes. When you're just sitting there shaking and you're like, oh my God, I did it. And for me, I never had a teacher or a mentor. I completely got into it on my own.
Good for you.
So when I was in a tree stand and I shot this deer, the emotion I had of like, I did this. No one else helped me. I figured it out. I made the attempt. I made the effort. I did this. And that was one of the most rewarding emotions I've ever felt.
I think that's the humanity of the hunting lifestyle is that you're independent, self-sufficient, and that you know you're performing conservation responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I haven't experienced it with my daughter yet. I have been there when my wife killed her first deer. And for me, that actually beat like killing deer for me now. Like,
always.
But this year I did, for the first time in years, I got the shakes shooting a doe because my 6-year-old was with me when I shot it. And it was the first time she's seen it. So for you, like, what was it like the first time you got to see, your kids kill a deer?
Well, I should have got angry.
Uh-oh.
Because Toby's first deer was a 168 out of the Jackson Swamp.
Yeah.
I poke fun. I couldn't have been more excited. Yeah. Because I heard him shoot, and I was in a tree stand with my bow. It was the 3rd day of the season. What year was that? 90, maybe 89?
No, 97.
Yeah, that late. Because I always encourage them, but I don't push.
Right.
Because I see a lot of these shows where the parents push, and those kids aren't ready.
Yep.
And it's almost like they're going to resist.
Mm-hmm.
You got to let them see your joy, and they should naturally desire to experience that joy without you pushing. And they got to know how to take the safety off and how to adjust the scope before they get in the tree stand. I see this stuff and I cringe. Anyhow, as a father, there's nothing more important than being a good dad. And as a guy that lives a conservation passion, you like them to be good report cards. You like them to do their chores perfectly. You like them to be an asset and to be conscientious and polite, and they all are. But when they kill their first critter, you have to control your emotions because it's something beyond the physics. There's something spiritual about that. You're passing down. I was going to say maybe the most important human tradition, but I'll take the word maybe out of there. The most important human tradition, because without hunting and conservation, you got nothing. There's nothing more important than nurturing young people. That's why the Camp for Kids is so powerful, and that's why I fight for proper game regulations for my grandkids and my kids and the other youth of my friends and bandmates. It's magic. It's probably the epitome of fatherhood.
I'm looking forward to it. We're taking my daughter out this year, and I've been telling her, like, we're going to practice shooting. We're going to go with a gun or the crossbow, whatever. And if you don't want to shoot, you don't have to shoot.
Not telling you what to do, Justin. Please. I'm going to tell you what to do. Make sure if you're going to a stand, you don't just go there opening day. You go there often.
Right.
Make her walk that ground. Make her find a trail. Make her find a scrape. Make her find a rub. Make her make a fake scrape. Make her identified food sources. And once we legalize the proper procedure of baiting, make her carry her own bait. Don't do these horrible violations I see on TV where the dad is adjusting the scope and taking the safety off. My God, that kid's not ready.
Right.
Your daughter, your sons and daughters should know everything about that gun, that they can carry it themselves, that they know how to load. Don't load it for them. Don't do everything at the range way before they go hunting. I see these shows and I feel so sorry for those kids. Why are you taking the safety off when the deer shows up? You didn't teach them that at the yikes. So introduction, recruitment, retention, critical, but done properly is more critical than just the activity.
We camp in our deer woods.
Yes,
and
good for
we
you.
make a scavenger hunt and say, Mia, find me this. And we'll go on the scavenger
And they get a thrill out of that.
Yeah, she loves
Picking up a shed or finding a trailer, finding poop. I mean, that's all we ever saw in the 60s was poop.
Find me go find me a patch of acorns. So
good stuff, man.
It's great. Oh, I love it.
Well, hey, we really appreciate you being on. We don't want to take up too much more of your time. Is there anything else you want to quickly touch on in hunting, camp, conservation, anything you want to end
Well,
on?
number one, I would hope that my friends at MUCC and Michigan bow hunters and the bear hunters and the deer hunters and the pheasant hunters and the DUs and the Delta waterfowl and the turkey guys, I salute them all for their focus on recruitment, retention, and promoting our sacred lifestyle. But your job hasn't even begun till you get everybody in your DU banquet or your elk banquet to vote. We created a hunternation.org. We got all the habitat. There's always room for improvement. But we found, talking about a heartbreak, we bought all the records of licensed hunters in America. Not one state had 50% of licensed hunters that had ever voted. I think the number in Michigan was 53% of licensed hunters had never registered to vote. Yikes. Well, examine November of 24, those 7 battleground states. I did robocalls in all those states for hunternation.org. We texted, we emailed, we knocked on doors, we scolded and confronted and begged, and we got millions of licensed hunters that had never voted before to vote. Now, not all licensed hunters are conservationists, but we focused on those that believe in God, family, country, private property rights, science-based wildlife regulations to keep that bear in the asset column, not a nuisance column, to keep that sandhill crane in a food column, not a wanton waste column. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really sweet about it. I said, how could, plus I have my sunrise safaris. I have hundreds of hunters from around the country, around the world, because they see my excitement. They go, Uncle Ted likes to kill stuff. I got to see what that's all about. And then they find that instinct. They come to our campfire, and most of them are licensed hunters, but we have a lot of introductory people. But I found out at our campfire, so many don't vote. Well, my vote doesn't count. Yeah, because you didn't vote. So MUCC, your number one job is to vote for constitutional candidates that know wildlife conservation. Not political correctness. We don't need somebody in Detroit to vote that the number one game bird is a songbird. You can vote that a pheasant is a songbird if you want, but it'll never be one. How embarrassing. If we would get our representation for real conservation, constitutional freedoms and values, there'd never be another battle we'd lose. We've proven that. So habitat's important. Fundraisers, though I'd like to see where it all goes. But voting, that's it. That determines all those other things. So that's what we're dedicated. That's what I'm dedicated to. And so if you don't vote God, family, country, you can't be my friend. And there'll be guys that go, well, I don't want to be his friend. Good, because you're not.
My first election was the Dove election, was the data ballot initiative.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
So I told the CEO, I go, so it's a songbird. You have a shotgun shell box late number 8 shot with a picture of a rose-breasted grosbeak on it? Of course you don't, because they don't put songbird pictures on shotgun shell. I happen to have one that says game loan. There's a dove. Are you really?
43
So it's a
states.
songbird. And by the way, and people can squawk all they want. Anybody that's against that is wrong. We grow more doves in Michigan than all the quail, woodcock, pheasant, and grouse combined. You can hunt those 4 birds and there's no quail.
Yep.
They're gone. I used to have quail all over our farms in Jackson County. Now I buy them every year, and I think we've reestablished some of them in the fence rows because we got the multi-floor rows. I plant the coniferous trees so it protects them from the hawks and owls. And plus I trap the hell out of egg stealers. So I think I've reestablished them. But the pheasant was king when I was growing up. And if you're not voting for wildlife conservation, the animal rights people own you. So that's my battle cry right now.
I think you summed it up pretty well. I think that's a great
All
spot
right, well,
to
thanks
end
for
on.
having me on. I appreciate it. I'm an MUCC life member.
Join MUCC.
Yeah, years
For
ago.
everyone listening?
I think, yeah, join MUCC, join hunternation.org. Just go there and see what we're doing. There's a lot of conservation organizations, but we're a voting army.
Election-based.
And then you'll have guaranteed conservation. You'll have guaranteed freedoms if you vote constitutional conservation. Yeah, real simple. Thanks for having me, guys. I love you people.
Yeah.
I drove my wife insane one time. We drove to Washington, D.C. for 12 hours. We listened to the Love Grenade album on repeat.
Oh, boy, killer song.
Doing that
guitar
with
tone.
her, I never thought that I'd be sitting here talking hunting with Uncle Ted. So no, thank you for coming in.
Well,
We
thank
appreciate
you
it.
for celebrating what I think is the greatest music in the world. Not just Fred Bear and Stranglehold, but some of those songs, the guitar, my bandmates. I have the greatest bandmates in the world. They're like divine intervention, soul brother, monster musicians. And we're doing, this is the greatest. I don't tour anymore because that includes the TSA and hotels. But I do concerts and I fly home every night. So I'm going to do Lexington, Michigan, August 25 and 26, Saginaw, Michigan, 27 August, Ludington, 28 and 29. I don't even know where we're playing. I just know they have electricity there. And then Paw Paw, Michigan. You ever played a concert in Paw Paw? I'm going to. Paw Paw, Michigan, the
can't say I have.
30th of August, and then Freedom Hill in Detroit on August 31st. And we're also doing the Wisconsin State Fair July 18th. But the point is that on August 26th in Lexington, Michigan, it'll be my 7,000th concert.
We might have to be in attendance then.
Oh, it's so
I think
good.
I have tickets to the August 31st one already.
When Freedom Hill, when I play Fred Bear in Michigan or Wisconsin, nobody's feet touch the ground. I got to take a deep breath and control myself. And I'm a tough guy. I'm a strong guy. It takes everything I have to make it through that song. It's so emotional, especially with everybody singing it together.
Yep.
I don't know if you were at the Fred Bear statue unveiling, but it was difficult.
We saw videos. Yeah.
Difficult stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.